us that we need. So George does. George brings the white eyes.
To be fair, Bob was always walking away from us.
That's true.
So.
He was always on his back turn. Didn't care. Bob, you're off the merch, man. You're off the merch. So Pagan and I spent a great amount of time. We went through here. I hope you guys are enjoying the website. I think it looks really classy, but we'll take any and all feedback. If you guys catch any spelling errors or anything like that, let me know. We literally just slapped this up there. But we got our 5-star reviews and positive comments that we've got in the show. So if you guys want your things highlighted up there, your testimonials about the show, please get in touch. Please post them on iTunes. If you don't think I've seen them or anything, just flag them for me too. I would love to get some more of those up there. We are doing so much with Patreon where we're doing articles multiple times per month. We're actually going to get you a roadmap at some point of how Patreon works. We're going to get you check-ins and things. But we're trying to also share all that free content over on the CloudMsterStudios.com blog so that it kind of ranks up search engine and all that sort of stuff. And we're just getting it out there to more eyes. For example, I saw literally in the metrics more people catching it when I put it on to this website. I don't know if Patreon is bad to crawl on Google, but either way, there's multiple places for you guys to check it out. This also has ways for you to stream the show. So again, anything you need, we're going to fill it out with some more links, making it even easier for people to grab their favorite podcast player. And I will put out a PSA that if you guys like to listen to it in a certain place and the show is not syndicated there already, again, let us know because we will gladly get that sorted for you if possible.
Yes, we will do our very best to get it to wherever it needs to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, the website looks great. I think that the logo looks great. We even revamped the Patreon tier logo images. So if you guys haven't, of course we're like pitching Patreon at this point.
We are, I'm sorry.
But the truth is we did a lot of work on the Patreon. So you guys should check that out. And I hope that you guys will also enjoy them as much as we do.
Yeah. If I can tack on there and say, we've tried to make the Patreon very free as well. We've tried to make it very approachable. So there's really opt-in options. But even if you just want to hang out and just be a follower totally for free, where you're still getting value by going there. You're not getting everything. I hope you can understand. But you're getting cool articles written by Pagan and just extra stuff as we, throw it together. So join up. The logo's all over there. It's very, very cool. Anything else we need to hit up today before we dive into it?
I don't think so. If I forgot something, we'll tell you guys on social media, Discord and all that good stuff, because I'm going to say no. Because I think we covered everything.
I think so too. And I guess the last thing I would say, which segues us directly into the topic, is if you guys have not checked it out, one of the free things I'm throwing up there is news articles from the last week. So I'm going to try and get that up there again tomorrow, Friday, the August 7th. I'm going to try and get that up there. There are so many news articles breaking about current UFO sightings. A lot of opinion pieces still breaking out of the last week's news, which was all about more Pentagon information. So UFOs, very, very timely. We did Betty and Barney Hill last week. So let's dive into the Exeter incident because this one is one Pagan. I had no freaking clue that this event even happened. Without further ado, let's set it up.
Totally. I really didn't have any idea about the Exeter case either. Would you like to set this up?
Yeah.
Or shall I?
If it's okay with you, I'll dive right into this.
Absolutely. Go for it.
So as we said with Betty and Barney Hill last time, that took place in September of 1961. And this case is happening in September of 1965. Both located in New Hampshire, which is, again, our area of focus. Pagan mentioned some Massachusetts activity that is also tied in, again, weirdly with that recurring September of 1960-something date. So very, very strange. But in this case, we are following Norman Muscarello. He is an 18-year-old who is hitchhiking to his girlfriend's house at Amesbury, Massachusetts. So it's about 5 miles south of Exeter. And this is going on about 2 a.m. in the morning. So again, we got this guy. He's 18 years old. He's about to leave to enlist in the Navy. And while he's going along New Hampshire 150, he sees these red lights. He's approaching kind of a farmhouse. And he sees these lights. They're so bright that at first he thinks they're related to a police or fire vehicle. This is some sort of emergency situation. And they are bouncing off of these houses. So much so, Pagan. They were so bright that it was said to actually illuminate 2 of the houses there, which seems very common to what we've heard with other cases.
Absolutely. And the thing is, these bright kind of lights and the craft, I think you mentioned, was silent. But if not, I will mention that it was apparently silent as well. And there was no sound, there was nothing there, just these flashing lights. And these lights are something that we see across all UFO lore. Well, not all, I should say, a lot of UFO lore, that they'll just be these big bright lights, and sometimes they'll be red, sometimes they'll be other colors. But it was just extremely fascinating why they were very different from the Hill case, because I believe those were multicolored lights versus these red ones.
I think they were multicolored last week. And one thing for this one is, as I have noted here later in our show notes, I guess when they talk about the lights, they were flashing in a pattern, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I guess they were like building up, crescendoing, and then going down. So in a pattern. Again, I can't remember for the life of me. I've been doing so many UFOs. Did the Hills say they had multicolored? Because I know they were red at first, but I don't remember.
I think that Betty remarked on the multicolored lights.
That does sound familiar. Poor Betty. One thing we kind of learned after the show, just doing further research, is Betty made a lot of wild claims later on. I'm still fascinated by her case and what happened there. But there's so much to dive into with these. So anyway, we got Muscarello, Norman Muscarello. He's seeing these lights, walking home along the highway, scared the hell out of him, I'm going to say, because from all recollection, he dives into a ditch because the lights actually start moving towards him. So he's like, I'm getting out of the way of these guys, jumps into a ditch. And then some stories, I see a more straightforward story that then says he jumps out in front of the nearest car he can find. Others say he goes over to the dining's residence and starts pounding on the door. I guess they didn't open because, again, it's like 2 a.m. Someone's slamming on your door and you live in the middle of nowhere. You're not so likely.
No. Don't open the door. Could be a serial killer. Don't do it.
Honestly, those are the creepiest things. We had a couple people knock on our door at weird times of the night when I lived in the middle of nowhere, and that's the haunting feeling. So they didn't answer, but he gets in front of this car. They actually take him into the police station, and when he gets there, the police actually noted how shaken he was upon arrival. And this is kind of where a little bit else, other stuff ties in. So let me check on the name here. I have it written down who was working the desk that night. It might be, it's Officer Toland was working the desk that night. He was at the dispatch. And he links together that another police officer, Eugene Bertrand, Bertrand's out in the car that night. He passes a distressed woman on the highway, and she says that she saw something up there. So this guy at the desk links it together. Muscarello's coming in, saying he saw lights. He's terribly shaken up. An officer earlier reported in, just thought the woman was seeing things, of course. Now we've got 2 people corroborating a story. And now we got something, Pagan. It's starting to come together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm in love.
You're totally allowed to be in love with this, because I'm in love with this. So with the connection of things, wasn't there also multiple other reports that started coming in throughout the night of seeing this craft? Yeah,
they do. So a couple different ones filter in. Here we go. So we got a couple extra people. There was Ron Smith, a senior at Exeter High School. He's riding with his mom and his aunt in the car around 11:30 p.m. So this was a little earlier than when Muscarello does. He also says he sees a red light on the top and bottom as white, and it glowed. Appeared to be a spinning disc. Passed over the car while they were on their drive. So, there's another account. And there's actually some more, one that also involves Officer Toland there. Mrs. Ralph Lindsay, according to Toland, called in early, just before dawn, said it was right outside of her window. It's like a big orange ball. So hers changes a little bit, but also not unfamiliar with what we hear in UFO reports, especially a lot of modern ones talking about orange balls.
That one links it to the Massachusetts case.
Oh, and thank you to Ninth Pond for subscribing. We appreciate you.
I don't know if you remember from the Berkshire case, some of the reports were big orange balls.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. That in this very small New England area, 2 states now have reported this big orange ball type UFO being right outside of homes.
And
so, wow.
It's a really common occurrence. It's very strange. Kind of what I'm digging into on the side, outside of these specific episodes for the show, is trying to understand a little bit better. I'm an up-and-coming ufologist, I guess. I'm new to it all, other than a passing interest over the years. But these shapes are so interestingly recurring. The cigar shape, the saucer, the orange ball. And they also seem to kind of change based on what our current understanding of the world is. One of them that I was fascinated by that we're going to have to do a whole episode on is the airships case of like the 1800s. They see all these flying airships over cities, and we're talking like hardcore steampunk style, which that didn't happen. We didn't have dirigibles to that degree when this was going on. And so, yeah, it's a very, very interesting one. You guys can even look it up, but we're going to do a whole thing on that.
So I want to highlight one of the comments in chat, and that would be Max. She says maybe there are different kinds of aliens / ships that are like different Navy boats.
That is a possibility.
That's an interesting theory, Mac. Good job.
That is an interesting one. I'm very... Yeah, well, there's stuff out there about that, Mac. That's you're getting ahead of yourself. So stay tuned. But Keel and them talk about stuff like that later on. So when we get to a little bit of our Mothman-y type stuff, Indrid Cold being left behind and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, getting back to Muscarella. So anyway, he gets to the station. He's agitated as all heck. Again, Toland at the desk ties it together that there's these 2 cases. So he calls in Officer Bertram, who was the one that saw the distressed woman on the highway. Bertram gets into the station, picks up Muscarello. They say, okay, we're going to head back over to the Dinings house where he saw this. They actually get there together, police officer and Muscarello. They get there on the scene as they both see the craft slowly rise from the trees with a red flashing light. And that matches, again, I call this out in the notes to say it does match with the Betty and Barney Hills thing where they mentioned seeing red flashing light as well. So at least on that note, there is a direct connection in the red flashing. Bertrand describes the UFO as a huge dark object as big as a barn with red flashing lights. Also to note, like a lot of cases, it distressed a lot of the animals nearby, so they were all freaking out. Horses kicking the barn.
Yes. Did they ever describe what the actual craft looked like?
No, I don't. I mean, I've seen various things, but it gets switched up. So not off the top of my head, I don't think so. I could try and dig it up too while we're here.
I was going to say that would have just been really interesting to see if the craft was similarly shaped to the Betty Barney Hill case.
I don't know. Yeah, that'll take me a while to dig that up. So let's save that for another time or something.
We'll save that for Discord or Twitter or something and let you guys know.
Yeah. Let's see. So back to what we were going on there. Animals kicking the barns. So Officer Hunt got called for backup. This is another officer who gets involved. He comes over and checks out the scene. When he gets there, he also sees that craft when it's about 100 feet away. So we got 2 police officers and this young man who's about to enlist in the Navy here that all got to see the craft. Plus, if we take into account the woman along the highway, she also claims to have seen it. So it's lots and lots of eyewitnesses stacking up in this case. 2 very, very credible witnesses. Pagan, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I would love to have kind of gotten to, again, sit down with these people and actually have a conversation with them about this, because you would have to figure that 2 officers are trained to chase bad guys. They're trained to, help people remain calm in crisis and all that. Could you imagine they were probably freaking out seeing this?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Also, like They really claim to get a good eyewitness of this thing. They're actually able to watch it for a while. So it's just crazy. I am looking this up again. A lot of the descriptions are of it just being a huge object. So, yeah. They all just refer to it as the object with red pulsing lights. You'd think that would be something that would have been noted more.
And
we
maybe
called
they
out...
couldn't just make out a discernible shape of it.
Yeah, because the one witness account that I read, they said, I mean, this is taking from Officer Bertrand. It said it's huge, dark object as big as a barn with lights on it. But then he doesn't really go on to say much about the size. Well, he says the size is as big as a barn, but the shape. They do mention a piece swaying back and forth, which we're going to get to here in a little bit. I guess it should be noted that he did try to shoot. He pulled out his gun like he was going to shoot it, but quickly realized that would not be a wise decision.
He may have tried to shoot it, and if he did, it might have gotten angry, or it might have just been like, that's adorable.
Yeah.
That's cute little human. Good job.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case because the witnesses. So moving on just a little bit, again, kind of disappointed I couldn't quickly find any more information on the description, but moving on into what goes on next. So they get in touch, again, this will sound familiar, but Pease Air Force Base, who we mentioned last week, they end up getting in touch with them, the United States Air Force. That Pease Air Force Base dispatches Major David Griffin and Lieutenant Alan Brandt to investigate the officers and Muscarello. They get there, they talk to them, try and tell them not to share this information with the press, which thankfully for us, they had already done at the time. But when they're interviewing them, they take away how put together they were. It just in general. And I've got a quote here that Major Griffin sent into it as an actual Blue Book report. He writes, "At this time, I have been unable to arrive at a probable cause of this sighting. The three observers seem to be stable, reliable persons, especially the two patrolmen. I viewed the area of the sighting and found nothing in the area that could be the probable cause. Pease Air Force Base had 5 B-47 aircraft flying in the area, but I do not believe that they had any connection with the sightings." So, yeah.
That's interesting.
I guess that was end quote before the yeah.
Yeah. Well, either way, that was still very interesting that, we see the same Air Force Base getting involved, but it's also very interesting that the Air Force Base is like, don't tell anybody. Don't talk about it. It's a big secret. And of course, everyone's like, dude, I want to shout this from the rooftops. Why can't I talk about this? Of course, if it was me and the Air Force was telling me to be quiet, I'm like, you're going to have to duct tape my mouth shut or something, because I'm going to shout this from the rooftops. You're going to throw me in jail before I will shut up about it. But it's interesting that, they said they were reliable. They said that they didn't find anything. But in my research of Exeter, you did a lot of the UFO research where I did a lot of the geological research. Exeter is also one of those places that was once covered in seawater and glaciers. Ooh. Seawater does hold the nitrates, which especially near the seabeds, obviously New Hampshire is no longer underwater, so that's not a case. There's also high iron content associated with the area in and around Exeter and the Exeter River. So those two things, the nitrates plus the iron, are all linked to strong UFO sightings. So it's crazy that pretty much the whole of New Hampshire is just covered in nitrates. So it's a UFO hotbed by that standpoint.
Yeah, we mentioned last week, the Hills had fertilizer in their car with nitrate when they got abducted.
Yes, they did. So now you've got a place that's rich in nitrates, you got a place that's rich in iron, and you already have a case that they were carrying nitrates. This guy was walking near farms, which basically fertilizer, it comes from farms and it does break down into ammonium nitrates. So
dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. It's kind of crazy that all these things, just all these correlations, or as they say in Hillier, the synchronicities.
Ooh, yeah. Well, that's a whole other topic. That's a whole other one. To dive into that chat a whole other time. Okay, so back onto our story here. I also have a note here that a Major Hector Quintanilla? How do I say that? Do you have a guess? Quintanilla? Quintanilla? I think so. Major Quintanilla.
Yeah, Quintanilla.
Quintanilla.
Yes.
I was really throwing my brain for a loop. I was getting stuck on those letters. So Air Force Major Hector Quintanilla wrote to the officers saying that they likely saw those B-47s in the area. Air Force also claimed the group may have seen the stars and planets twinkling due to a temperature inversion. But again, like we just talked about, these guys saw this item 100 feet away from them. So it's not pretty hard to mess that up. And it's a three-person ordeal. So it's like, again, yeah.
Well, point of order, Major Quintanilla. I'm sorry to tell you this. I have gone stargazing many times, and stars and planets twinkling are like these big. They're itty bitty compared to a giant craft that's the size of a barn, flashing its light at you.
100
Dude,
feet in your
put
face.
Glasses on. Apparently, you're blind. Thank you very much. Have a nice day, Mr. Quintanilla.
Seriously, it's insane. Let's see. The officers actually went on to get in touch with Blue Book. They sent in a letter. I think. Let's see. So they wrote in a letter because the official explanation that was given for this was very lame, like that. It was, oh, these people missaw it and blah blah blah. It's just not an alien craft. So they wrote into Blue Book, these officers wrote in saying, as you can imagine, we have been the subject of considerable ridicule since the Pentagon released its final evaluation of our sightings of the September 3rd, 1965 event. In other words, both Patrolman Hunt and myself saw this object at close range, checked it out with each other, confirmed and reconfirmed there was not any type of conventional aircraft, and went to considerable trouble to confirm that the weather was clear. There was no wind, no chance of weather inversion, and that what we were seeing was in no way a military or civilian aircraft. So I feel like that tackles what we just talked about, Pagan. That kind of debunks it.
Before we continue on with the Project Blue Book area, why don't we tell our listeners what Project Blue Book is?
I don't really have a great thing to talk about in front of me other than to give a very generic rundown. We'll talk about this in a later time chat. We can do a full one. But Blue Books is a government organization set up to investigate UFO activity. And it has many different little facets that I don't know about. Last week we talked about NICAP last time, a part of it. So again, it's going to be a whole probably standalone episode to talk about Blue Book.
Well, I think we should add it to the list because that would be very interesting.
It would. Blue Book is so cool. I mean, just the stories that come out of it. I wish you would have gotten to see that show on TV, and that's kind of why I don't want to lead you guys astray and give too much information that I can't speak about, but that I don't know firmly. But yeah, very, very interesting stuff. They're accused of hiding and not taking a lot of action on UFO cases, so it's one of those things. Were they completely competent and totally knew about aliens or UFOs or whatever it is and just hid that information? Or are they completely incompetent and just never did their job to begin with? And I don't know. UFOs are still running amok now. We don't know.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do an episode on Project Blue Book to be fair, because there's a lot of information and a lot of speculation associated with that we simply, unfortunately, don't have the time to break into. I was hoping we had a concise, quick run, 2-sentence thing of here's what Project Blue Book actually is, but apparently there's no such explanation.
Well,
Sorry,
I mean,
Chad.
we could. I think this is great, Pagan. I think some of these questions, if you field them to me in advance for next time, let me know and I can come prepared for this happily. All good. Like I said, if you want to maybe take a stab at some of these in advance too, because you could write those down and then we could have an even more concise one. I just don't like what I said. I don't want to give people false info or just not anything like that. So we'll write them down. Basically, let's see how we're doing on time here. Yeah, well, where was I, Pagan, where I left off?
You were on point 2 of the Blue Book.
Okay, let's find that again. So they received no answer for Blue Book. when they wrote in, they actually went about trying again. So basically, it was a total freaking failure. At one point, they get a response, but it's a huge letdown. They went on to just feel completely neglected by the event. So ultimately, the government failed them. The government kind of failed everyone involved. They just didn't really do any of the proper steps. To the point, like I said, they had to write in a second time to try and get any acknowledgement, which is pretty disappointing, seeing as the world was a lot smaller back then. And this is 65. We're not the population level we are now. They're writing into this local base. These are patrol officers, so they're not nobodies either. These aren't just Joe Schmoes. So for them not to get any kind of response is, like I said, either very intentional or very sloppy.
I think it was somewhere between intentional and
probably.
Honestly, I think that the government didn't know what to do with it.
Well, I mean, they have the whole area of Blue Book set up, so I don't know. What are they not prepared for? I mean, the whole concept, sure, but I mean, they have a division made to deal with the whole concept.
I think possibly maybe the division was actually just made to collect the information. I don't think that they actually were briefed on, hey, how do you handle people inquiring about this?
Now that could be true.
That's very unfortunately common even in today's government. Like they'll tell you, here's what you do, here's your job. Oh, well, what do we do if someone asks questions? You don't talk to them.
Right.
You don't answer the questions. You just say no comment and you move on. And unfortunately, I think that was the case with this.
It was.
And it's very sad to say that that's the case because these poor officers, they're in investigative lines of work. You know, they want to know exactly what this thing is and they want help trying to figure it out. And to essentially solve the case, to not only put their own minds at ease, but also to put the community's minds at ease. And they never got an answer.
That's right. Yep.
It's sad.
And you're correct. I mean, that was a very, very common. You'll hear that a lot as you dive into this. How they were told not to communicate to people about this sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's pretty wild. Captain Eye Candy, or I'm sorry, Eye Captain Candy in chat says, did this info really have to come out in 2020? So we're going back to an old case from the 60s here, but I think Captain Candy's talking about all of the more recent UFO stuff. So again, I have a full recap on that up on the Patreon if you want to go check it out. It is a total free resource. You can go pull all those articles. I will have another blast of that coming tomorrow because there is a lot. Ultimately, we are left having a lot of questions about the Exeter case here. We know that there is a festival that usually goes on, and unfortunately, it won't be going on now because of the virus. So,
right. I actually watched a video from the Historical Society in Exeter, and they kind of made light of the whole incident because of the fact that they didn't have any answers. Nobody gave them answers. They talked about this case, and you know, at the end, she's just like, you know, we don't have any answers, so instead we have a festival about it.
I think that's great.
I guess, you know, embrace the weird at that point because there's nothing else to do. So it's really a crazy case. The same with the Hills case. Both cases left us with so many more questions than answers, and I don't think we're ever going to get those answers, unfortunately.
No, I'll give you the two conclusions here. So in January of 1966, a Lieutenant Colonel John Spaulding from the Office of the Secretary of the Air Force responded to the police officers finally, saying, based on additional information submitted to our UFO Investigation Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, we have been unable to identify the object you observed on September 3rd, 1965, end quote. So they got finally an answer that said, we don't know. And then also later on, this is way later, so that response was in 1966. In 2011, a Joe Nickel, prominent skeptic, and James McGaha? I don't know. These names that's a tricky one. McGaha. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, James McGaha. I do apologize. So basically, they actually pulled together a fairly reasonable explanation of what could have been happening. The underbelly of a KC-97 tanker for refueling mid-flight actually has the same flashing patterns of those lights we mentioned earlier. They do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 sort of thing. So, and they also mentioned a boom arm that was hanging down, could have partially been what, was mistaken. But, and I mean, I understand things play tricks on the eyes in the middle of the night. But it's just a weird one. I mean, 100 feet away, if they're to be trusted and to be taken responsibly, and even the government said, when they were investigating these guys, they said they seemed rational, sane, and put together. So if we're to take it on that agreement that these people had some good semblance of what they saw as professionals in the field of going out and dealing with events, tragedies, emergencies, they saw something that was outside of the realm of normal policing. They saw it not by one pair of eyes, not two, but three. It seems weird. It's weird. It's weird, and we don't have an answer.
Weird. Not only that, so to kind of add my thoughts on the 2011 response to that, refuelers, as far as I know, are not completely silent. They have some sort of sound. Pretty much. I think all basically aircraft of any kind in our current military and aviation has some sort of sound, other than maybe our stealth bombers, which still have a sound because I've actually flown in one.
It's very interesting. And I mean, maybe they didn't take into account the sound with how far away it was if they were identifying it. Like if they're thinking it's closer than it was, for example. Saying it's only 100 feet away, but it's actually way, way far out. Maybe that accounts for the sound confusion.
Maybe
No way are they refueling planes 100 feet above the ground. That's
not
way
not
too
even close. Yeah, that's way too close. It'd be far more higher in the sky. Words are hard apparently for me tonight.
Well, I get where.
But yeah. There's just no way that I think it could be that. I think that they were just like, here, we're just going to give you an answer, hope they take it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's a strange.
Tell you in the post show, Mac.
Oh goodness. Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about in the post show. Yeah, you guys. So that kind of brings us to actually a little bit of a wrap on Exeter. Like I said, this is a strange case. I love how many eyes are on it. I really liked it because I had no clue that it even existed before we got to this. So look at what the show's teaching already. And every episode, I will continue to learn a little bit more and bring that knowledge to the program. Peg and I are researching and learning on our time. So thank you for allowing us to do that. Thank you for supporting. Tricky, I see you giving that sub in chat. Thank you very much for that. If you're a listener to the podcast here, please consider dropping by the show. Again, Twitch on Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We kick that off. That's about 1 a.m. if you're in the UK, so a little bit late. About 24 hours after that, though, we'll have the show going up to YouTube and to the whole Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the whole rundown. We'll have all of it in the feed. If you guys didn't get a chance to listen to last week's, the Betty and Barney Hill episode was fantastic, and we got it edited, so that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that was really cool.
I like that. So consider.
I think we decided that we're going to attempt to do the editing this time ourselves.
Yeah, not to that degree. I'm just going to merge together our clip, so I'm not going to oversell that to them.
Well, we're going to do some merging, maybe very minute editing, probably not, to be fair, but it's okay. We're still going to give you guys a quality episode, and it'll be available here in a day or two after tonight. So yeah, we're excited to bring that to you. The show notes will be available probably, I'd say tomorrow, first thing Saturday morning, one of the two.
Cool.
And those will be up on Patreon as well. And so if you guys have any questions or anything that you guys want to share with us in regards to paranormal events, UFOs, cryptids, anything, join the Discord, tell us in Discord, or go to Kyle's website and did you still leave the submit?
No, but that will come back. Yeah, that is not there because it wasn't ready for prime time. But Pagan's saying, we're going to put in a submission area for people to submit their stories. So we will definitely be having that worked on and get that up. Like Pagan said, go check that out, please, please, please. If you want us to continue getting episodes and stuff like that edited, make it very nice on your ear holes, continue supporting. That's kind of a pricey endeavor. We were looking into that, and it runs, it tallies up at the end of the month. So, it's pricey. If you would like to support that, though, because I think it's worth it. I think people that are listening on the podcast feed will absolutely appreciate all of our ums, uhs, and other craziness cut out. To the people that are here in Twitch, you guys love it and are used to that. So thank you very much to everyone that's considered donating, for the people that are joining the Patreon, or for people that are joining Discord too, that are following the Twitter, the Instagram. All of those links can be found easily in the description below. We have a link tree set up. If you click into that, it will give you everything. We also have a link tree for both Pagan and myself, so you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and all the places in between. What else do you want to lay on them this week, Pagan? Anything as we sign off?
Our Instagram and our Twitter are both growing rapidly still, which is so cool. Thank you to anyone who has followed us. Thank you to just being so supportive and allowing Kyle and I to do all of our crazy paranormal, fun, investigative work. We love it so much. Also, we had some great submissions this week in Discord. We had some great people reaching out to us on social media. Keep it up. Send us all that paranormal stuff. I don't care if you think that it is slightly paranormal. It might be paranormal. I don't care. I want to see it. It might be totally, completely paranormal, and you might just be going, I'm looking at this super skeptical because I don't want to be crazy. Let us be crazy for you. It's totally okay.
That's great. I agree with that. Totally agree with that. Please, please, please. So submit them in Discord for now. We'll let you know when it's up on the website. Look forward to the website logo. A warning, again, that will pop up on the podcast at some point. So when you see the eyeball triangle guy with the tentacles and you're like, what show is this? I'm unsubscribing. Don't. It's Chaos and Shadow.
It's still the same. It's still the same. We're just changing the logo, y'all.
With a much cuter dude. Sorry.
He really is. He is adorable. And he's adorable and creepy all at the same time. He's perfect.
He comes with different flavors too. I'm showing chat the ones that are on Patreon. So check all those out too. Look at all those creepy little guys.
Those are great.
I love them. Okay, Pagan, let's let them go for the week. We'll touch base with you guys next week. In the meantime, if you're looking for anything from us, again, check the Patreon. That's the first stop. We have a ton of stuff up there, all free and everything in between. So go look. Pagan, thank you again for bringing all your research and your knowledge to the show.
Thank you as well.
Absolutely. Let's catch these folks next week. You guys have a great one, and we'll see you next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on Twitch.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Excellent. Chat, thank you for hanging out with us. That was great. I love that.
That was good.
Exeter's a very fun one.
It was a fun case. And it wasn't as, I would say, in-depth as the Betty Barney Hill case, but it was shorter. It was a little shorter, but it was still really a in-depth kind of case compared to a lot of UFO cases.
That question you posed about the nondescript craft might explain this image that I'm looking at right here, which actually doesn't have anything in the sky. I didn't really look at this before. Like, it was one of those things I never paid attention to. But maybe the fact that they don't have a shape for the craft is why they didn't do anything in this recreation-y photo. There's some other stuff that just, like, throws in typical UFOs, but they're, again, not really... That's not really what they described in that photo.
I'm going to turn my camera off. I love you all, but...
Pagans yeeting.
It's coming off. Whoop. I'm not yeeting. I'm turning the camera off. Oh, wait. Did you find the button?
I did, yes. Let me hit that button first, just so in the future, otherwise all your secrets get exposed to the audience. Let me hit that first.
Not very many secrets in that video, but it's totally fine.
Yeah, thankfully.
Luckily it was more just like, hey, time stuff. Check this out.
I've definitely had a co-host reveal their own sensitive information like that before, where they're like, I'm going to shut my camera off. I'm like, you shouldn't. And they did it anyway. And then their like address or something was exposed. And I'm like, well, that's why we don't do that. Or it wasn't an address. It was like a phone number or something, I think. And I was like, that's
Oh, okay.
God.
Yeah, there was nothing sensitive
Not
and
on
secrety
yours, though.
there.
You're a lucky bean there. Chat, okay, I'm going to let you all go. You guys have a great night. Thank you very much for listening. Check out the Linktree one right there. That would be fantastic. I'll get you everywhere you want to go. And thank you to everyone that subscribed. We appreciate you. Keep us in business. Without you, there is no show. So thank you very, very much.
That's very true.
Yeah, we really, really count on the funding. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you can't fund the show, there are another couple options that I will propose to you right now. One, you could go subscribe to the show on all of your podcast apps on your phone. If you have 20, you could subscribe on 21 different devices. If you are worried about your space, you could always tell it to delete after the latest episode downloads, which counts as a download, which actually makes Pagan and I a lot sexier to advertisers. They only care about you when you have at least 1,000 downloads. So, and they don't care who really listens to them. I mean, they care, but they don't care. So that's how you do podcasts. So put it on all your parents' phones, your parents, your kids, just stick it on all of them. Maybe not your kids, but well, if they're over 18, whatever. Yeah, anyway, that will all help us out a ton, and word of mouth. So share it with anyone that you know that is interested in the paranormal stuff. Nancy, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Thanks for the stream and the podcast. Thank you very much, DLM. Thanks for hanging with us, Goonies Girl, Crow, Mac, Jacarana's here. We got Zareen. Is that how I'm saying that name?
Zareen.
Zareen.
Yes, Zareen.
Okay. I don't want to be butchering everyone's name. Alan was here. Also mentioned earlier that distance can be hard to determine if there's no structures nearby to judge them from. Very common mistake, distance out west where things are largely flat and minimal structures and trees. Worst one up in the sky. That's fair. That's very fair. That's a very good point. Who knows? I love the mystery to it. Kick, thank you as well. I appreciate you being here and hanging out with us. Okay, everyone, I am leaving, so I'm just going to press this button. I don't have a fancy outro screen for you guys tonight, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.